Okay then, so what I've done here in order to demonstrate branching and merging is I have reset the entire repo back to the original state. So I removed our repo over in Bitbucket, made a new one, and disconnected our repo here in Designer. So what we have now is a brand new database. Well, the database, same database, but brand new repo, all new association. We're on revision 0, and it's already been associated. We're in the default branch, and we're at the tip. So just for chuckles, let's do a team commit. I don't see any changes there. Let's do a team push, and we'll look. I don't know if there's any change sets to send. No, there aren't, so we're just going to cancel. So basically we've already synced up everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create let's just do two, well, we'll make 3 branches. So we'll make a master branch, a development branch, and then a Rust dev branch. So the way you do that is you're going to go through and you're going to say team, add branch, and we'll just create a master branch. It's going to commit, and while I'm at it, I'm just going to go ahead and make another branch for the development branch and commit that, and then I'm actually going to make one last branch for Rust dev. In addition, now that I've got these 3 branches, I'm going to switch back. So I'm going to do the switch to. We've seen this before where we got bookmarks, revisions. Here's all of our revisions so far. Tags we'll get to, heads we'll get to. We've got branches, so I'm actually going to switch back to the default branch. So now I'm in the default branch, and I can see that I'm in the default branch because it says so. I'm going to close this branch, so I'm going to do a commit, and I'm going to close this named branch, and I'm just going to say closing the default branch. Since I did that, it's going to want to know, well, okay, fine, which branch do you want to be the active branch then? Well, in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and say for kicks that the master branch is going to be my current branch that I'm working in. Now I've just done several changes, so let me go ahead and push all that up to Bitbucket. All these change sets need to go up there. Let's zip zip zip. Once it gets up there, we will go back here and look at the overview for the repo. We'll see all those commits, and we'll look at the branches, and we'll say, okay, sure enough, there are our 3 branches that we have left in the repo. If I look in the source, what's a little odd, I always found a little disconcerting, is the repo actually maintains having the default branch even though it's not listed here. I don't know why it does that. If I look at the commits, I start to see a little bit of branching mechanism in here. In Bitbucket, you can go over and you can actually click on an individual tag, or not a tag, but a branch name, and it will move you into the commit history just for that one branch. You can remove your branch history filter over here, and then it will go back and show you all the commits for all the branches. So at this point we have 3 separate branches that we can do work in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way down and add a new feature. So let's go down to team switch to. We will switch to the Rust dev branch. And I know it's Rust dev because it says right here Rust dev, and we're going to make a change. With our friend Mr. Test XPage. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say, okay, this was added in the Rust dev branch. Okay. Now, since we just made a change, the repo here recognizes that as a change. I'm going to go ahead and commit that. When I commit it, I'll just when I commit that, it's now going to say, well, we're at revision 5, which is now the tip. Cool. And if I push that, then the repo will, the remote repo, the Bitbucket repo, will get that as well. So let's look over here in ye old repo. Let's look at the commits. And now we can see, sure enough, in the Rust dev branch, we've got a small change. That's fine. So back at the ranch, let's just say, we like that change. That's a good change. Let's run that up the flagpole and see who salutes. So we're going to move that into the test environment, which we also refer to as development. And so I'm going to switch to the development branch. Now, look here, the development branch is at revision 2. The Rust dev branch is revision 5, and it's the tip. So there's clearly code or updates that have been done in the Rust dev branch that have not been pulled over or merged into the development branch. So when I move to the development branch, it's going to update the NSF automatically. Okay, there's a switch in there that does that. When I open this up, I see that stuff I just entered in the test XPage is not there because this branch doesn't have that change. So I know that I'm in the development branch, and you just have to pay attention to this. I want to merge, or I want to pull in the changes from the Rust dev branch. So I'm going to do a team merge. It's going to say, great, where do you want to merge from? Well, I'd like to I'd like to merge from revision 5, please. And so I'm going to select that. Okay, and we'll just say branches, same spot. We'll say OK. It's automatically going to look and say, all right, it's going to do a commit. It's going to say we're merging. It's going to tell us exactly what's getting merged or which elements. And now it just updated it. That's the latest revision. So the development tip is at version 6 or revision 6. The development branch should have that change in it because we pulled it over. And sure enough, so we run that on our test server. And then we say, okay, that's totally good. We want to put that into production. Again, the process is switch to the sort of the receiving branch. So now I'm going to switch over to the master branch. The repo indicates, sure enough, I'm now in revision 1. I'm in the master branch. And we're going to go and we're going to say, great, we want to merge some changes. And now you have some choices. I could either, in my case, either merge in from 5 or 6. We all know this is the same exact change. In real life, you would probably move it from your dev branch, your play around branch, into your development / testing branch, and then pull it from there into production. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to assume that this went through test on the test environment, and it's all good, and we want to just merge those changes. It comes in again as a merge. A merge is a revision. So we're now at revision 7. It's the latest revision. Just to make sure everybody else has all that information, I'm going to do a commit. I've been doing a few activities locally without committing, but now I'm going to go ahead and push all those to the repo. And so off it goes. And so what we did, we made 3 branches. We closed the default branch. We made a change in our Rust dev branch because that's our kind of our goof off branch. Oh, if something breaks there, we don't have to worry about any other environment getting messed up. We then moved into the development branch, and we merged the changes from Rust dev into development, tested it, and then we merged the changes from development over into the master branch, and the master branch is the production branch. So if we look at the repo and see what that looks like, this is the kind of activity you see in here. You start to see multiple branches. You start to see where things kicked out and where they got merged back in. And so that kind of goes with what we just did. You know, we made a branch to here, and we branched from there all out to Rust Dev. We closed our default branch, which I believe is this purple one. We made some changes, came back in, merged in that way, merged back in that way, and so visually it looks like that's about how it works. Just for kicks, if I go in here to the repo and do a show history, you get a similar artifact inside of the history for inside the repo. So I mean locally with the Eclipse plugin. You know, when I first did Mercurial, I thought, oh, this is really great, you know, and blah blah blah. I think it actually looks a little bit better in over in the other one, the Bitbucket. But to tell you the truth, it's not all that helpful. I've found that you just kind of have to pay attention to just sort of know what's going on, and you got to communicate with the other team members to sort of keep up to date. So what happens if you make a change in the master that you want to pull back? Well, it's the same thing. So let's just say we're already in the master branch. We go in here into our test and we say, whoops, I just fixed a bug and now need that code in the Rust Dev branch. Okay. So now I've just made a change in the master branch. I'm going to commit that, and we're going to say bug fix for ABC issue, or ABD, one of the two. Now the master branch is all up to date, but the other two aren't. I really only want to go play around with that in the Rust Dev branch. So again, I switch to the branch that I want to work in and merge into. So I'm going to switch to the Rust Dev branch. I know I'm in the Rust Dev branch because it looks like it right here. Then I want to merge the changes, so team and then merge, and I'm going to pick, in my case, revision 8 and merge it on in there. So now when I updated merged, it basically updated the repo or the actual NSF. I look in here and sure enough, there's the code. Okay, so now just for chuckles, let's switch over to ye old development branch. Now the development branch right now is a little bit behind. It didn't get anything from the master. Everything came up, and now the the master's ahead of it. The Rust Dev branch is ahead of it. This one's behind. So just for chuckles, let's go back in here and say, okay, I just added some new text in the development branch, and we'll commit that change. So now we have a situation where, for all intents and purposes, we might have a conflict brewing here, because if I go to pull changes in from the Rust Dev branch, well, the test XSP got edited, and the test XSP has already been edited in the development branch. So let's just see what happens. So if I right click here and I say team merge, and I merge in from the Rust Dev branch for kicks. Now at this point, and it's actually been here all along, I just didn't refer to it, but when we started merging, it actually opened up this Mercurial merge window. I'm going to pull this down here. Now in this case, it says, hey, we got a conflict here, and the merge pauses, and the merge basically says, hey, I'm merging, there's some issues in here, and I can't continue the merge until you resolve these errors. So it's your job to right click on this and mark these things as resolved. As soon as you resolve the last unresolved error, the merge will just pick up right there and continue, and then it basically does a merge. Well, how do we know what's right? Well, if you double click on this, you'll open up into the merge editor. The merge editor essentially goes through and says, hey, here's where we have conflicts, and there's some buttons up here that basically kind of help you try to figure out how to do this. I freely admit that I'm not entirely sure about all of these. But what I have found is there's one here that says copy all non-conflicting changes from right to left. Well, you say, whoa, what's right to left? Well, right to left is, look, this is revision 9. Revision 9 was the one from Rust Dev. So that's the one we're merging into. So the one on the left here is our current branch. The one on the right is the one that we're merging from. So we're pulling it in. So just for chuckles, let's see what happens here. Let's do a copy all non-conflicting changes. And I didn't really see any change there. So now it looks like that was a conflict because I didn't see it move anything. So I'm now just going to do the hardcore, hey, copy it over. And that's what it did. And then I'm going to close this. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. And at that point, the merge was resolved. I don't know why it just went away like that. Probably because there wasn't a thing. But let's go ahead and remerge. Oh, here we go. It came back finally. Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. So basically, this is what it normally does. After you save it, it's still marked. It's still in the list as unresolved. I'm going to right-click on it and mark it as resolved. Now that's the last resolution that I had to do, conflict I had to resolve. It says, oh great, now I can go ahead and merge. And it's going to merge, and now it's in there. Now, when we look inside, what we actually see is, yeah, some problems. You know, you can't have this, you can't have that. And so there's a few things that I want to just comment on here before we tie this merging thing up. The first thing is multiple branches, pretty cool stuff. Everybody can have their own branch. You can beam it locally, put it up on the common distributed, central repository. And basically a repository has all of the branches and all of the history. So I can be working in my branch all day long, just updating, 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 updating. It's not going to affect anybody else's branches. They could be updating, as long as they're on their own branch, we're not going to have any conflicts. You move things around by moving to your receiving branch. You merge into your current branch and you pick where you want to merge from. As long as there's no conflicts, it just goes right in. If there's any conflicts, then you have to resolve them, and as you've seen, resolving involves some risk. This is not exactly a healthy resolve. I think if I go in here, I've got an error, and I think part of the deal is I've got double views. Yeah, like this. What the heck? We got an extra view, closing view tag. I'll bet you there's an opening one. Let's just save it here. Actually, that quote unquote fixed it. I'm not really sure that's not a valid merge. But the point is, if you do have conflicts, you got to kind of work through those. One of the ways to avoid those is to essentially coordinate how you're working, and also commit and push often. Committing and pushing often allows you to have smaller changes, and you run less risk of basically running into these conflicts. So that's it for branching and merging and sort of resolving merge issues. The next thing we're going to talk about is tagging, and then we'll talk about multiple environments.